So for those of you who are here, I'm Amanda Kraus, and I'm the new CEO of US Rowing. And this is week 6, I think. And we're holding these listening tours or Zooms to just get to know our stakeholders. And so the junior rowers are a super important stakeholder group to me and to all of US Rowing, and obviously their parents. So there isn't a strict agenda here. It's really just to learn from all of you and hear from you guys directly, have a conversation. And I'll start with, first of all, backing up a little bit and making sure you guys know who else is here. Brett, do you have anything you want to jump in with?
No, just, I think I'm always interested in what kind of content we can be creating from a coach education standpoint. So if anything comes up with that, I'm very much looking forward to hearing it. But I'm gonna let Chris and Amanda kind of run this one and just be tech support.
Great. And then I bet you all know Chris Chase.
He just can't work technology. My name is Chris Chase, and I'm the director of youth rowing, and dabble a little bit in regattas and junior team and events and things related to junior rowing.
Yeah, great. And we also have Jack Smith, who just started also a few weeks ago, who is really taking comments and commentary so we can actually start to affect change and get people's feedback. We have as Chris would say, we're cooking up a lot of ideas here. And certainly you all are an important part of that. A tiny bit about me. I rowed at UMass Amherst with Jim Dietz. I have 2 junior rower age kids myself, 7th grade and 9th grade. Chris appreciates this too. They play soccer, they don't row. And I ran Row New York in New York City for 18 years. So I know a lot about juniors. It's certainly a wonderful, wonderful age. And in my mind, we have such an opportunity to, really design the experience that they have for better or worse. And so I say, let's make it for better for them in terms of safety and positive coaching and really an incredible experience. And I think hearing directly from you all is super helpful on that front. So I don't see any of you yet. If you want to turn on your cameras, that's great. If not, I understand this generation doesn't do that a lot. Oh, Scott, are you in 10th grade? But if you could just jump into the chat and tell me where you're joining from. So what city or state or what junior program are you a part of? Just so I have a sense of who's here. Anyone? Are you guys able to type in there? Casey, we know where you're from. Scott, you want to tell us or type it in?
Lake Cachuma in the background there. Santa Barbara, right?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Nice. I wish I were there right now. Oh, Dallas United. Okay. Junior girl, sophomore boy. Oh, nice. San Diego. That's fun. Okay.
Yeah, ZLAC's a club that goes way back in rowing history.
Yeah, that's great.
Great to have you, Mary.
So 1892.
There
nice.
you go.
Very nice. And also in San Francisco. Great. I'm sorry for your most recent lockdown going on there in California, or shelter in place. Okay, so really what this is about is not about me talking. That's all I'm going to say about myself and my background. This is really truly a listening tour. So, and since there's such a small group in this group, we've had groups that are small and groups that are oversubscribed. Since it's so small, I don't think we should feel like we have to have this discussion for an hour, but we will if folks want to use the time. So my first question is, and I love people can put it in the chat, but it's always nice to hear people's voices besides like my family and dog. So please, jump in. I guess my first question is, what are the things that, either if you're a rower or a parent of a rower, you feel US Rowing can be doing more or less of as we move into the new year?
Can I jump in there?
Yes, please.
Okay, I am a parent, and I'm sorry I can't figure out the video here, so you're just going to have to listen to the Australian accent, and hopefully you can understand that.
It's great. We love it.
I'm a parent of 3 rowers. We've been in USA Rowing for just on a decade now. Very interesting year, for sure. We're certainly seeing in California, everyone's in singles. Everyone is in very small boats. We happen to be able to put my sons in a double at least, so they can get out and train. It's a bit of a meaty question, and I've sort of raised this a little bit before. I did a quick number breakdown across regions, and this is for if a miracle happens and we do have regionals. And we're not seeing any 8s on the water, at least I'm not, from where we are based. I'm seeing, at least in the Southwest region, if we break it out into the 1X, the 2X, the lightweight 2X, and the pair, we have 8 categories of opportunities, from a novice through to potentially a national champion competing in those events. And then if you look at the Northwest region, you have 14 opportunities. They've broken it into the lightweight 1X, they've broken it into the novice 2X. There's a lot more opportunity for younger children and children of, I guess, athletes, of different builds, different age categories, to at least feel like if regionals happen, they're not going to turn up to the 1X in the Southwest region and be up against 2,000 kids. Does that make sense? Like, it would be great to break out some categories, 15 and under, 17 and under, 19 and under, lightweights. I just think that if other categories are doing this, other regions are doing this, and the Southwest region currently isn't, how's that going to play out if regionals happen next year and no one's in 8s right now?
Right.
How do you foresee the Southwest region to look like for these athletes?
Amanda, you want me to jump in on this?
Yeah,
one
I
for
do,
you?
but I just realized I was very rude, and we'll answer that question. Chris is better suited to answer that question, but I want to make sure that people know who Casey is on this call. Chris, do you want to introduce Casey, because he's an important person?
Yeah, for all of you who are on, you can see the name Casey there. That's Casey Galvanic, and he is the junior national team head coach. We have just consolidated the men's and the women's team into one team. And Casey will be overseeing the junior national team system from the top down for the next year. So if you have any questions related to junior national team stuff, then Casey's on and listening as well. Do you want to move into that question?
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
So the first thing to understand about that question is that the regions were created before the youth national championships. And so the regions, each of the regionals that happens throughout the US, and there's 7 regionals, and then there are some within regions, there are scholastic organizations and entities, and each regional is in charge of its own race. And that was pre-US Rowing's involvement with the Youth National Championship. So, NERA goes back about 100 years. That's the New England Prep Schools, for instance, and they've been doing their own championship for over 100 years, or about 100 years. The Southwest Regional is run by a board of stewards. Now, we have a Southwest Regional Council that we interact with as US Rowing, and that's something we just started doing last year. I put those together last year. The race itself is run by the coaches and the programs within the Southwest region. They choose the events, and basically what you see happening is whatever we offer at Youth Nationals, virtually all the regions verbatim do. Now, on top of that, any region who has the time adds in whatever they want, and or whatever it is important to them. So where you see the Northwest saying, hey, we have a lightweight single, or hey, we have a novice this or that. Some regions don't even have novice. Some regions do. Some one of the new things that's happening is, and this might help answer your or help with solving some of the issues that you're bringing up, is that US Rowing has started a U17 and a U15 category. And so what you're seeing now in many of the events, especially the smaller events, and you'll probably appreciate this from an Australian point of view, is that many of the younger kids in the other countries learn how to scull first, and it's better for their body. And so what you're starting to see is regions like Casey's region. Casey has a series of races for U15 and U17 in his region, as do we in the Northeast, where I'm from. And so what you are alluding to is the decision made by all of the teams in the Southwest region, and those are the events that they have voted on having. So you have X number of minutes over the course of X number of days, and you also have the ability to row multiple times. So there's another little another little thing to throw on the fire. Some regions are done in a day. Some regions have 2 days of water time. Some regions have 3 days of water time. You guys have to deal with what Natoma will give to you until you can develop a second. Well, I mean, some of the talk right now in your region is that you might have a north and a south portion of the region and create 2 regattas and split your bids up, which, that's, again, US Rowing would have an opinion, but that's your business, I think, at some level. But you haven't developed that second site yet that you can count on, that's filled with the infrastructure of a fully buoyed course, the launches, and so on and so forth. Your region is very long. Like for me, in your region, I think, what is it, from Natoma to San Diego is like 10.5 hours or something. So that's like me going to South Carolina, from New York. So now one of the things that we're looking at, and you're asking in a COVID, in a pandemic, one of the things that we're looking at, and we don't have any answers about the pandemic and what exactly is going to happen. But we know that for the last year, or by the time we get there, right, by the spring, for the better part of a year, everybody's rowing in small boats. What we might offer are more events, maybe based on the U17, U15, or maybe we do it by birth year. You brought up birth year. Believe me when I say we want to give the most amount of opportunities to the athletes.
Correct.
We certainly struggle hard enough and we sacrifice enough. We all do, as families, as athletes, as parents, and as US Rowing. We all work hard for that. But you do need to understand that at step one, your region is self-contained, and coaches in your region choose to do, and whatever program you're from, your coach is part of the voting. And so, I think what you're faced with is there's a balance between the big, huge, massive clubs that have 200 kids in it, right? And they want to get all those kids multiple rows. And then the smaller clubs who maybe are in singles and doubles, and the 8s rule the day, right? So, one of the things that we have in Saratoga is we happen to have a 10-lane race course, but if you have a 6-lane race course and you can put 6 singles in it, that's 6 kids. If you put 6 8s in it, right, that's 54 kids, right? Is my math right? I have to ask. It's horrible that I have to ask. So do you do what's best for 54 kids, or do you do what's best for 6? And then so there isn't a right answer, and there isn't a wrong answer depending on what your kid and what program you're from and so on. But going back to the very basic part of your question is this: your region chooses those events. And they include all the events that we host at Youth Nationals, and then whatever time they have left, they backfill it with, whatever gives the most amount of opportunities.
When do they decide that? Is that sort of something that right now we don't even know whether regionals is going to be on, but if I look at my kids, I have a 15-year-old and a kid that is a fairly high level rower, and so I'm just thinking, okay, you got the men's 1X or the women's 1X, and I just try and figure out how do you make sure that all these novices and new kids are, being valued.
Well, it's funny. Well, a couple of parts to your answer. They make those decisions. They make those decisions. I believe it's the first weekend in September. I know that they had their meeting this year because I remember having some questions coming while they were in it. They were asking me, they were texting me. So that's the first part of that answer. The second part is a lot of it's already in writing, like they already have their bylaws and they have the way that they do things. So somebody might bring something, and I don't know exactly how they do it, but I don't know how they do it exactly. But if somebody wants to add an event, maybe they sit on it for a year and they think it through to see how it impacts the flow and the schedule and all that. So that's the second part of the answer. I don't know how they would add events or take events. Now, I imagine in any of the regions, I imagine that the stewards or whatever they call them in that region have the ability to make changes on the dime if they need to. They might have an executive council. They might have an executive meeting. I know in New York, we have 91 teams, and in emergencies, we could, like if a change comes through about lightweights or if a change comes through about whatever, the 5 executive members can turn around and make that decision for states, which is 7, 8, whatever weeks later.
Got it.
One of the other things that might be helpful to you is it may be that we get some, let's say that we get some regionals in this spring and others don't. Like, let's say the early ones we're not ready for. Nobody in the country is ready for. Let's say that there's 3,200 miles between the coastlines. Let's say that one region has theirs and one doesn't. At youth national championships, one of the things that we'll have to do is make our regatta open so that we can get any of the regions who didn't get their regional in. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
we have to make it so that if somebody didn't get to earn their way in through the regional, we still have to be able to allow that region to send athletes. So it may be that we just have open registration for every event. It also means that we might be able. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I would call you by your name. I keep pausing right at that moment. It might be that we just say, hey, we're going to do a lot more singles or a lot more doubles, and we're going to go by birth year, or we're going to go by U15, U17, U18. All things are on the table right now. We just don't know what we're going to be facing come April, May, and June.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yep. Any other thoughts or spin-off questions for that one?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, it would be, if you guys can sort of talk to us, I'm curious to hear sort of how, maybe just for the parents for a second, that was a good specific question. And thank goodness we have Chris here, but also so curious to know, as parents of rowers, how can we be a resource to you all?
I have something that this is Katrina. Did I step on someone?
Nope, you're good. I think Scott had something after you.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
Nope, you're good.
So I mentioned my 2 high schoolers. I actually have 4 kids. And here in our region, there's not as much familiarity with the sport of rowing. And one of the things that has come up with my kids is there has occasionally been injuries, back, rib, different things like that. And being able to find medical help that actually understands this sport. I've spoken with orthopedists who, say rib, and they immediately think you got a hitch in your side or something. And it's like, no. And I've had to make my case in order to get appointments. And I've been blessed to actually find some doctors that served on the East Coast and are familiar with the sport, just, through persistence. But it might be helpful to have some sort of exchange or, something where that parents can share, I have found this kind of professional, maybe it's a nutritionist, maybe it's an orthopedist, et cetera, that it really knows about our sport.
Chris, I actually have an answer for this one.
All right, and I'll follow. I have something right after that.
I'm so proud of myself. I'm always proud when I know anything about US rowing. So that's such a good question/idea. And it's funny because I was just talking with Matt Imes today, who heads up the high performance for the senior national team. And he was talking about the full-time physical therapist who works with the mostly with the women's team in Princeton, but he consults with the PTs in Boston and out in California too for the men and the para athletes. And one idea that's being floated is, can he step back a little bit from the national team athletes and obviously still support them, but also be a resource to other clubs, junior programs, master's programs, collegiate programs, because this is his whole life's work, is how rowers' bodies work and stop working and get injured. So that is absolutely in the works. His name is Mark Nowak, and it's not a done deal, but certainly I'm so glad to hear you say that, because it's fun to hear people say this is something that we could use when it's something we're thinking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, especially just you're working with people whose bodies are changing. I mean, you know, I think about the changes that my 15-year-old son has gone through in just 2 years. And that's natural. And then, you know, you put in the added stress of, you know, rowing thousands of meters a week. It's
absolutely. And we
Katrina,
could be a
let me
resource
follow
to
up on Amanda's answer as well. What you're looking at here on screen is Mark Novak did 10 webinars for us over the course during when we first were going through COVID. He took every part of the body and how it relates to rowing. And he did what he called prehab, which are exercises to strengthen areas that he sees the most injuries in. And he did things for rehab. So we have all of those videos were available throughout the spring and summer. And we actually have made that into a course that kids and coaches, and I've, you know, almost on the regular now, have been giving access to college coaches and all of the, so we have all kinds of resources available, including, like, you know, that each one of these is a folder that talks about a certain portion of the body. It's filled with videos. It's filled with worksheets of what to do. Now, you know, we're not saying anybody's a doctor, like, unless Mark specifically said this, and this, but all the prehab stuff and all of the videos there, we have them available, and they're through our US Rowing website. So your coaches have, Steve and Amanda and all your other coaches have every opportunity to you know, get themselves up on this, you know, their knowledge on this and build it.
okay.
So yeah, this is all out there waiting for you already, whenever you're ready for it.
Okay, I'll go looking for it. Thank you.
Yep.
That's great. What else? Other ways that we can be helpful or be a resource to you all, the parents. We'll stick with the parents for a minute, and then we'll make sure we move on to the kids if we have any kids on here.
Amanda, I'll throw in an idea, and I think it builds off what Katrina was just talking about. Right now, particularly given the isolation that so many of us on the West Coast are feeling, it's true, I guess, across the country, two things could happen. One is we're going to lose a bunch of rowers. They're going to lose interest in the sport. They're going to lose sight of their team because they can't train together. Or there's a chance for US Rowing to really galvanize and bring everybody in. And I wonder if there's not a real role for you to play there. I've really been impressed with some of the things that are going on. But if I just think about a youth rower and, you know, the experience of my own son here at Kachuma, there's no competition other than, you know, Saturday is race day against your teammates. And so there's no tangible reward. And US Rowing can really fill that void. You're doing that through gamification, through virtual challenges. The more of those things that you can do, not just in COVID, but to continue that throughout the summer, such that people who are remote can feel like they're part of the rowing community, I think that could help a lot.
I love
that.
Likewise,
there's a lot of people erging at home. And so, you know, if my son wants to make the junior team, for instance, how's he going to figure out how to lower his erg? Well, he can go onto Reddit and read a bunch of, you know, junk about what people suggest that they do to lower their erg, and taking supplements or drinking beet juice right before your erg. Or, you know, he can read maybe Casey's advice and plan laid out for, here's a 3-month plan to lower things. But institutionalizing some of the training such that it can be done at home, because you're such a great resource for that. And the content could be so accessible on your site. And then the third piece is, getting back to Reddit, if they want to participate in the rowing community, chances are they're on Reddit or they're on Snapchat or Instagram or something like that through the clubs they follow. But it would be great if US Rowing, as part of their website, tried to create more social opportunities to just get people engaged with one another and start talking with one another.
Good. I love that. I wonder, what do you do for a job, Scott? You have good ideas.
Yeah, Scott, you looking for a job?
Yeah.
Actually, are you looking for my job, Scott? That's what I'm starting to think. Interesting point. So it's interesting that you said Casey in 3 months, because what we're at right at the end of convention, which is this week, Casey is going to be putting out a 3-month workout for the winter. It is not, and since we're not going to be able to do any in-person ID camps, just joining the workouts will be your ID camp all winter. So we will get to see if you, as long as you or your athlete are posting their results, we're going to get to see what kind of times your kids are pulling. You're going to have the national team coach, the junior national team head coach is going to be providing with your workouts. And we are going to constantly be seeing the improvements of these young people. And so when you look at the levels of camp, there are 15 individual camps within our pyramid for the junior team. And you will end up somewhere. Like, your age and your ability will put you somewhere, and we'll know because you're doing the workouts. And not only that, but part of my idea for this is that we rank kids by push-ups, pull-ups, 3K run. If you don't have an erg, you can run or bike. And you can put your times in. If you're still on the water in a single, we'll put your times in for the single. And we will rank all that. And so that your kid will be interacting with kids from the other coast, like from Maryland or Florida or Texas, in their same age group. So if you're a 2003 birthday, you'll get ranked in those categories with all the other 2003 categories, and you'll see where you're at. So that's the way we're going to try to make it interactive. So Marla and Scott, one thing I will say is, in the early days of community boards, the one thing that happened is that the ability for kids to be ahead of us in technology, they went rampant on the things that they put in there. And they started putting like little porn clips. They started putting like crazy stuff. And we couldn't, they were always one step. Some of these really smart teenagers were so far ahead of us in technology, we couldn't stop it until it was too late. Like, we had the problem with Zoom in the beginning, right? A lot of the Zooms were getting, I forget what they called it. They had some Zoom boom.
Zoom bombing.
Zoom bombing. And so, but the funny thing is, it's not so, I know we laugh until it happens. It's never, God, did I just say that out loud? It's never happened to me yet in 270 webinars. But, when it comes to those chat rooms, those boards, the anonymity allows people to say things that are just crazy. And
I think there are things we can do, though, maybe where we get some like youth ambassadors who, youth ambassadors from around the country, high school kids, like 10 kids who take over our Instagram, who are vetted, like who we know aren't going to be doing exactly what you described, Chris, just to put some of that ownership in their hands and empower them to like help tell the story of rowing. I think we have a lot of ideas around how to like further engage young people and tell the stories of rowers around the country. Are we doing something, Chris, is any of the virtual competition like youth program?
Oh, yeah.
focused?
Well, we've had continuous youth camps all summer and fall. We just finished a 6-week camp. And knowing that the kids have been on, Zoom all summer, and now we're on it in school, I did it only 3 days a week for 6 weeks. So we did things, Scott, like nutrition or pre-practice or why rest is important or repetitive motion injuries. We did things like that. And those are all still accessible. I mean, the summer camp had over 40 webinars specific to teenagers and training. We did everything from, like, well, you name it.
Chris has been on fire, if you can't tell.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, he might get on fire.
Chris,
but,
do we have something where kids can sign up as a group, like as, Philadelphia Junior Rowing or ZLAC Rowing Club juniors, can they sign up to race other junior programs as a group, like to get that camaraderie going, or is that not?
Well, yes, yes and no. So the technology, our desires is faster than the technology because of COVID. So you see, there's a lot of companies trying to put, like the new, you can link monitors now from the newer herbs, right? So there's PM5s you can link together and you can race somebody. You can see, somebody in different states. So you're starting to see Regatta Central and several other places are trying to make the technology so that you can race each other. So what we're going to do is something in March. We are going to have some stuff where, like I want to call it the Oarsome Foursome Challenge. So you can get groups of 4 from your teams, and they can, just like March Madness, you have the big tier, and you race somebody, and then you race somebody, and you race somebody until you crown a champion and have prizes. So, the other thing to remember, Scott, you brought up erging. It is not healthy just for the kids to erg. Like, we've got to find a way to get our long-term athlete development program going. The American Developmental Model. We've got to teach them to be cross-training as well and be well-rounded athletes. Otherwise, we're going to create injuries more than we're going to create champions. So, one of the things I want to do, like what I'd like to do, Amanda, is have teams put in, what is your core workout of the day? And so every day of the training period over the winter is like Oakland Strokes training program or so-and-so's training, and then everybody could own a day for core. Every Tuesday is, Philadelphia Youth Rowing. I mean, so it'd be fun to get that kind of engagement.
What else? What other ideas do folks have? Marla, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so we're in Georgia, and my daughter is 14. She's a freshman. She rows with St. Andrew's Rowing Club, which is awesome. Suburban club. But I'd love to see more diversity, in the sport. It's not a new topic.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I just, she's, we're in the suburbs, and I have a good friend, and my daughter just happened to be the same age as her daughters who had an older sibling in rowing. So there were like things that just made it easy for Alana to just kind of go in there. And I would love to see more diversity. And I live in an area where I'm like, man, why aren't there, other families? And I already know some of the barriers for sure.
Yeah.
So it's been encouraging, like, the what is the most beautiful thing I
Arche. Yeah.
I know that there's been some things over the past few years. I would just, love to see it touching the,
so
the organizations more.
Yeah, of course. So if you Google Row New York, that's where my background, .org. So that is near and dear to my heart. And I've made it very clear that it is one of my 3 priorities at US Rowing is to make our sport more diverse and inclusive. So we have a very active 17-person DEI board, committee of the board, and from all over the country. And they are on fire in terms of the action items and the plan will be shared in January for the sport, because you're absolutely right. And, the sport will be better if we can make it, when we make it more accessible, when we make it more diverse and inclusive. So I'm 100% with you. And I know Chris is, I know Brett is too. Like, the team is absolutely on it, and there's a lot of work to do. And one of the first things we'll be doing is hiring a DEI person on our staff. Because if we don't put resources into this, we're not going to see a shift. And so stay tuned on that one. And thank you for your feedback on that too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have any rowers on, junior rowers? Are they just zoomed out? Okay. All right. Anything else we can do? Or Chris, do you have, or Casey, do you have any questions? I'm just looking for, what can we do? What resources can we provide? What can we stop doing, start doing? No. Marla, you looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah. So my daughter is a freshman, and so we're still new to the kind of more competitive elements. She's been doing it for a few years, but the whole process of kind of preparing to potentially pursue a scholarship, and that sort of thing. And I have seen some things in registering with US Rowing. In fact, I think as I was doing it this year, there was something right there that you could sign up for that would help with some of that process. I'm just curious about other things and the places to go to really understand what you should be doing.
Chris, you want to take this one, or Brett?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm not sure we've done a great job of getting out there is that part of being a member allows you to go into your membership portal. And in that portal, like, we've done several recruiting seminars. And so we've done, just a lot of, you name the topic, we've done it. And if you go into your member portal, on the site, you can see there's so many more resources, I think, that are available that people don't know are available. And it's, like I said, we did over 270 webinars since March. And the vast majority of them were for juniors. Like, I did a whole master's one, I did a whole Coxswain's one, but the juniors one is like 70 strong just for that. And you talk about technique on the erg. We've got Division I college coaches talking about, technique on the erg, just breaking down technique and how to be safer and make stronger. So, I think the first thing to do would be many of the questions, I bet you the answer is already there, right? So go into that membership portal and start pouring through some of those things to see what is there. Just like the one before, about one of the things that has struck me over the years is that rowing's exploding. The scholarships are worth $250,000. Like, everybody wants to win, and we are getting more and more athletes into the sport, and we're getting more and more injuries too. And so the whole reason why we got Mark Novak is we have the person in America whose only job since 1996 is to take care of rowers' bodies. Like, he's the one. And why weren't we using him? So he did this webinar series, and it was incredible. So I think everybody, the scholarships won't be there if the kid gets injured. So we've got to take care of the kid. And not only that, but we've got to do mind, body, and soul. We're not, winning doesn't make great human beings. And so, we've had sports psychologists on to talk about how to create boundaries and how to create standards and how to have realistic expectations. And, and the last thing is, it's a lifelong sport. We're supposed to love the sport because you can do it for the rest of your life. It's not called winning, it's called rowing. And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of resources there. And if you see something that's lacking or missing, send the email and we'll get on it.
And he will.
Yeah, I will. It's the Red Bull that goes through my veins.
Yeah, I meant Red Bull, not coffee. What else, Scott?
Yeah, I'll throw out another idea, and it's largely, in the absence of information, people will invent their own reality. And so I think amidst all the confusion of the pandemic, US Rowing could really take the lead in terms of communicating information around events in particular. As an example, I would tell you that last year, in the run-up to what was supposed to be youth nationals and then beyond to club nationals, or just the national championships now, depending on which coach you'd ask, there was so much misinformation about, yeah, I talked to this person, it's on, or hey, I don't know. And you could clear up all that confusion by literally just making that an update section of the website. And, whatever the truth is at any given point in time, just tell us it, such that, people aren't forced to guess.
Was this during COVID? Was this COVID?
Yeah, but I think it's even true today.
Right.
In the West region, for instance, people don't know, is there going to be spring racing? Is there going to be youth nationals? And you probably don't know
Right,
either.
we don't know. Yeah.
But it's okay to just say,
relative.
We don't know. And
Yeah.
this is one of the things you did really well early last year, where you said, hey, we don't know, but here's the date when you can expect more news.
Mm-hmm.
just saying that you don't know, because everybody's looking to
Right.
this body for a decision, that's useful news in and of itself.
Yeah. Chris, what are we doing on that front?
The hard part is, well, we had the webinar last week or 2 weeks ago. And then we're having another webinar on the 15th that talks about spring regattas. And one of the things that we said in 2 weeks ago, Scott, was we don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now or 7 months from now. And what we're trying to do is have regular contact now. It's funny, we assumed we put it up on the website and people know, but we were getting hounded every day with phone calls and emails, and it became very clear that people aren't even looking. I mean, we had COVID update 7.0, which meant that for 7 months, we had a new update. And people would call us and say, hey, you're not telling us. And we're like, have you checked the website? And they'd be like, no. So, the newsletter that comes every Wednesday, people are sick of getting it. So they opt out. And then they're mad that they don't know. Well, guess what's on that newsletter? The stuff that you're asking about. It's an amazing thing. And then it's relative to how fast, I know that coaching, I'd already have all of my transportation and housing needs for all spring season regattas done. I know where we're staying. I know 8-9 months in advance. And coaches want to know now so that they can plan airline tickets or they can plan buses but we can't say that, we just found out that Notoma's not going to host Masters Nationals next September. Well, most of the other sites, and there's only 7 major sites to host a regatta, they don't know if their municipality is even going to give them a permit to host it. And they won't know for months. So there's no way that we can say, yeah, we're going to host that race in Cooper River, New Jersey, because Cooper River, New Jersey doesn't know if they're going to let us. So I think what we're going to try to do now, to answer Amanda, your question, is we'll have more regular contact, have at least one, first or second week of every month, have a webinar or a meeting like this and say, here's what we do know. And here's some of the options that are on the table. So 2 weeks ago when we did that webinar, I said, hey, we might do birth year, we might do, U15, U17. And Scott, let me tell you, I got people with now that Chris said I should send him my opinion. So I had a call today from a guy that said, look, don't do the birth year one because it screws my team. Do the other one. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. And so we're getting, very specific feedback on what people want. But we're going to try to do that, at the beginning of every month, each month, and keep it going like that.
Chris, do you or Casey have any questions for these parents that you want to learn, that we want to learn from them?
In terms of the junior national team, we've got a lot of stuff on the website, and we will be updating that, because we've just gone through basically a blind spot year, and there's nothing happened. So we're going to have to update it. I wonder where they get their information from, I guess is what I would like to ask you all. Like, if we're putting it on our website and you're not seeing it because you're not going there, where do you get, I can't Snapchat. I'm just going to tell you right now. I don't even know what that is. But where.
It's okay, Dad.
And if people are opting out of the emails, where do you get the information from?
Good question. Marla?
Yeah, so I think that you said something earlier about the onus being on people to read, and to a degree. So I think that's very much true. There's a lot of word of mouth, to be honest. And my daughter's a freshman. This is COVID year, so I want to be clear. There's so much that's unusual. But we have we use Sports Engine, and we have a Facebook page. We have some chat mechanisms that we use, but a lot of it is relationship and word of mouth and parents talking over time. And I definitely will try to influence things to I have friends that are on the board to try to make sure that there's more of it flowing down in a little bit more of a formal way, helpful information.
When it comes to US Rowing, Marla, do you go to our website, or do you wait for the newsletter, or do you, like, how do you find out things that are US Rowing related?
I've just begun. So like we did Head of the Hog, right? Yeah. And so I had to down in Sarasota. I did the registration this year again for US Rowing for Alana, for my daughter. And I explored during that process, and I did sign up for some things, and that's how I'm here. But I would like to see our club also push some of these things, and that doesn't really happen right now.
How about Katrina or Scott or
Yeah.
William Ernst?
I was going to echo kind of what Marla said. So one of my daughters, she was a class of 2019 high school graduate, and she worked her way up through dev camp and then into HP camp. And the way that I found out about that was actually from another parent. It was not something that was introduced really by our coaches. And, I think that do I understand correctly that there's a lot of interest in building the junior national team? Can I get head nods if I'm right? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So the thing that I would point out, so I'm a parent of 4 kids. This is not an inexpensive sport for year round. And our family really made the decision with our oldest who might have been competitive. She was already getting attention for collegiate recruiting, et cetera, but the cost was adding up to $5,000, $6,000 a summer to send her to US Rowing Junior National Camp. And had she made some of the competition and been able to go on beyond that, it would have been even more expensive. And so we were actually looking at what that was going to cost us in terms of our other family commitments, namely to send our child to college. So I think that you would have a lot more interest in if we could get sponsorships. I have a coworker whose daughter was on one of the junior national teams for soccer, and through sponsorships, different things like that, it didn't cost the family, and instead they show up and they're decked out in gear because Nike's there and Adidas and everyone else. And we should be able, the story that rowing has to tell is incredibly compelling, but I don't think we're telling it well, such that we're getting support for these kids to go and compete at the highest level, and it's falling on the families. So we've got to do something different if you really want to be able to alleviate that burden so that families can make that commitment to the training.
I definitely hear that. One of the hard parts is my kids play soccer, as Amanda said, and to send them for a 1-week camp, which is usually 5 days, to go to soccer camp is like $1,400. Well, most of our camps are a month long. If you were just to take $1,400 times 4, it's a crazy expensive thing to ship your kids somewhere for food, housing, and especially when they're young. Mine are young. In terms of sponsors, Katrina, believe us when we say we would love to have sponsors. We're just not that kind of sport. And our women won the world championships or the Olympic gold for 11 straight years, and we still couldn't find a sponsor. We're not the sport that sells sneakers. Nike's not interested. Nike doesn't sell anything for rowing. Reebok, pick a company, right? Pick any company. We don't have a Michael Phelps and selling Speedos and we just, that's not the kind of sport we are.
We're going to try though.
I honestly, so I live here in Texas where, people are like, gosh, what's that going by, over there on the lake?
Yeah.
People don't know and they don't recognize it, but I've been around the sport for 5 years, and I didn't row myself in high school, but I know, this part of the country, and I think all y'all are, we are sports crazy. And what's really interesting, is here in Texas, the high school that I went to had 222 kids in the graduating class. Our largest high school here in DFW has 1,400 kids in the graduating class. So the traditional field and court sports that are sponsored by schools are not there. Parents are hungry. They're looking for opportunities. They're just exactly like my husband and I were, trying to find a great fit for our kids. And, we count some of the races that we've seen in regattas amongst the most amazing sporting events that we've seen. And so this sport has everything those other sports do, except for exposure.
Katrina, is it Katrina?
Yes, Katrina.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, we should maybe talk offline. We just signed a contract today. Chris is right, by the way, in everything he said in terms of we have not been successful. We're going to try again. And maybe we won't be successful, but it's on my list. And we just signed a contract today with a company to help us with the sponsorship piece, because I'm with you. And we're all biased, every one of us on this Zoom, right? That we think rowing is, the most wonderful sport. But I think there's some untapped opportunities out there. And I wonder if you'd ever be so kind as to talk to this gentleman we've hired for 10 minutes to talk about, because you're in a region, I'm in the Northeast, to just talk about what that's like there. There could be opportunities we could find even locally in terms of sponsors who would sponsor the regatta itself, but also, local kids engagement. I mean, there are lots of ways to think about this.
I'm happy to help however I can. One of the positions that I have, I would love to see US Rowing lean into this area. DFW is 5th largest, region, metro region in the country. And we've got major airports, major airlines, and just about everywhere in the United States can get to DFW on a plane in less than 4 hours. And I do not know why we do not have regattas happening. White Rock Lake, where DUC rows, sits in the middle of a major metropolitan area. We've got hotels, we've got some of the best food in the world. I don't know why we aren't here more. So I'm happy to help. I love the sport, and I'd love to see y'all lean into this region, because I think that it's a great opportunity. And we're also climate wise, you won't freeze your fannies off if you're rowing in, January, February in Dallas or Austin.
Yeah, Chris knows about that.
Katrina, I'll tell you what, I don't know why you're saying that, because it was 29 degrees we got up to today. So I don't know why you're picking on us up here. One of the things, Katrina, about your region is you're right. And there's a lot of great rowing going on down there. When I said there are only 7 major regatta sites, it's because we don't have many places that are locally building the infrastructure to have a regatta site. And then you run into the issue like fishermen and water usage. Everybody wants to be recreational on the water. And then you run into high schools who don't really want big rowing teams, because as I found out in Saratoga High School, once we started getting the good athletes going out for rowing, the other sports got together and were like, oh, heck, no, you're not taking the good athletes. And so, there's so many obstacles. And not only that, until Title IX, rowing is the old, like in the 1870s, before any other college sports, there were national championships in rowing happening here in Saratoga. It's the oldest of sports, unless you want to count, lacrosse. But
yeah, Chris.
Yes.
We've run into a lot of what you're talking about in terms of recruiting. I do recruiting with Dallas United Crew because I'm not bashful. And I posted one of the things that we found as a success is a service called Peach Jar. And you pay like $5 or $25 a school. I can't remember what it is. You buy credits, and you can go directly into the school, put flyers directly into the parents' hands. Unfortunately, DISD, the Dallas school, which is our biggest one, doesn't use that service, but some of our major suburbs around here do that. And it's a way of getting around the athletic directors who are protecting their rice bowls, all of that kind of stuff. But we've just kind of had to be creative. I understand, and you've been at this longer than I have. And so it's kind of like, how many times are you going to bang your head against the wall? But I think collectively, we can find the cracks, and then we can start getting the flow that we all hope we can see into this sport.
Yeah, we got to have people bold enough and brave enough to start teams to get the kids the experience, the outlet for this interest. And that's, one of the parts that, rowing exploded because of Title IX.
Mhm.
And in the last, we've seen an explosion of it, especially for young ladies. We just have to find, it's kind of new to everybody, right? I mean, it's something it's fairly new compared to football, basketball, baseball that's been around for how long? In public high schools and in schools and stuff. So
I think we need to, Brett, do we need to jump off?
yeah,
and
we
get
have
ready
3
for the
minutes. We've got to
kids?
get going.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
we're gonna be
right.
talking to the coaches next. Yeah.
Oh,
in
coaches,
3
not the kids, right? I'm like, where are the kids? I want to
Is there
talk
going
to
to be more
them.
broadcasting of competitions in terms of building interest and awareness and things like that?
I don't think we have, you mean like regional regattas and?
No, I guess I mean at the top of the sport, so there's trickle down kind of awareness and hype.
Well, I guess there's one thing. Hi, I'm Brett Gorman, and I'm with coaching education, but I've also been pretty involved at the U23 level, and I'm also part of a USOPC think tank, where one of the things we're trying to do is how can we bring more relevance to sports like ours? Because I don't know how much because this is for junior parents, how much you guys are aware of this, but there is at the collegiate level the unfortunate event of where some programs are being cut because of lack of funds, because of football and potentially basketball, and athletic departments, having to make some really, really tough decisions. And how can we prevent our Olympic sports from being cut? And one of our ideas is having an Olympic sports network for, kind of like a Big Ten network or an ACC network, but for specifically, collegiate sports at that level, Olympic sports, again, to bring more prominence. So it's not directly related to what you're talking about, Maria, but again, the trickle down. How do we become more obvious? How do we have Olympic festivals that highlight rowing regionally? So it's coming from all different angles, but that's something that we are a part of, and I'm on that think tank with a lot of athletic directors across the country.
And Marla, we're also working with drone companies and stuff, trying to figure out how to use the technology to get live racing through drones and through apps that you can see. You can do it right from the drone. So we're trying to piece that together too. These are things we were going to try to roll out this year, and then we all know what happened next.
What happened?
Guys, I have to run to start the other one.
All right. Does that mean we should go too? Because is it the same?
I'll meet you over there. It's a different link. I'll meet you over there.
I'll see you there. I would add one other piece that we're thinking about, and to be honest, I don't see it happening this year, but besides us thinking about it, but for next year is developing some sort of platform or USRowing app where all of these things can live. And when I say these things, like, if you, Scott, you just had kids rowing or you were coach, you would just put the app on your phone